Welcome back to another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about, taxes.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's favorite topic, right?
Right.
But what if there was like a simpler way to do taxes, especially for countries that are like moving from socialism to like a market economy?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to be looking at today.
That's what we're going to be exploring.
With something called the Simplified Alternative Tax.
Or, as we're going to call it,
SAT.
SAT for short.
Yeah, so...
Our deep dive today is based on a 1992 article from the World Bank Research Observer.
That's right.
And it's got a very long title.
Yeah, it does.
A simpler consumption-based alternative to the income tax for socialist economies in transition.
By Charles E. McClure, Jr.
Quite a mouthful.
It is.
But this article lays out like a really fascinating alternative.
Yeah.
To like traditional income tax.
To a traditional income tax.
But it sounds pretty technical, but stick with us.
Right.
This dive could be like really eye-opening.
Absolutely.
Especially if you've ever felt lost in that maze of tax regulations.
Yeah, for sure.
And I am all the time.
So the article specifically looks at the unique challenges faced by those countries shifting from socialism to market economies.
Yeah.
Back in the early 90s. So imagine this. You need to build a whole new tax system from scratch.
Oh, wow.
With often very little experience in dealing with things like mass taxation or even the concept of self-assessment.
Like they've never done this before.
Right, exactly.
It's like learning to swim by just being thrown in the deep end of a pool.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
No floaties.
No floaties, no nothing. Just
good.
Go. Good luck.
Yeah.
And on top of that, there was this deep distrust of the government left over from the socialist era.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And that made voluntary compliance with tax laws a major hurdle.
Yeah. So basically just dropping down like a big, complex, Western-style income tax system.
Right.
Seems like a recipe for a disaster.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
McClure argues that the income tax, with all its intricacies like depreciation schedules, multi-period production accounting, and the headache of inflation adjustments, was a poor fit for these emerging market economies.
So, like, you need something simpler.
Simple.
Something easier to understand.
Right.
So what did they do? Did countries just throw their hands up and say no taxes?
Not quite.
Okay.
Many countries were tempted by what McClure calls the Swiss cheese approach.
Oh, Swiss cheese.
Riddling their tax systems with targeted breaks and holidays to try and attract investment.
Okay, I see. So like holes in the system. So it sounds good on paper.
Right.
But, I mean, if you give a toddler Swiss cheese,
oh, yeah,
you're going to have a big mess.
You are.
I'm guessing that's kind of what happened with these tax breaks.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Just like Swiss cheese, these targeted breaks create an uneven playing field. They lead to unfairness, increased complexity, and open the door for savvy companies to exploit loopholes.
So basically what we need a level playing field.
Yeah.
A system that encourages investment across the board.
Right.
And I think that's where...
This is where the SAT comes in.
The SAT comes in.
Simplified alternative tax.
It addresses those challenges with a kind of a two-pronged approach.
Yeah.
A simple tax on labor income collected through withholding like you're all used to.
Yeah.
And then another one.
On business and capital income.
On business and capital income.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this business tax.
Okay.
How does it simplify things?
So it's a flat rate applied across the board, whether you're a corporation partnership or sole proprietor. You're all playing by the same simple rules.
Okay, so you don't have to like figure out your tax bracket and all that kind of stuff.
Just one rate.
Okay, but what about investments?
So
how are those handled?
This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
The SAT introduces the concept of immediate expensing for all investments.
Immediate.
Immediate.
So what does that mean?
So let's say you spend money on a new piece of equipment for your business. You can deduct the entire cost right away in the same year.
Wow.
No more messing around with depreciation schedules spread out over multiple years.
So that would be huge for startups.
Absolutely, especially those who are strapped for cash.
Yeah, or small businesses.
Yeah.
Imagine you could just deduct the full cost
right away
of like a new delivery van.
Yeah.
Or a new 3D printer.
All in the first year.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a game changer.
It is.
Yeah, and I guess no need for complex inventory accounting either?
Nope.
So further reducing the burden on businesses.
That's the idea.
So this is all about simplicity.
Simplicity is at the heart of the SAT.
Making it easier for people to understand and comply with.
Exactly.
It sounds almost too good to be true.
It does.
But what about the government's share?
Yeah.
Don't they need tax revenue
Right.
to function?
Of course they do.
Right. So,
But while the SAT exempts the normal return to capital, the government still gets a cut of what McClure calls extraordinary returns.
extraordinary return.
Extraordinary returns. Think of windfalls from privatization,
Okay,
state-owned enterprises.
I see. So
They still get a cut of that.
they're not giving away the whole pie.
Why? They're just betting
they're betting on the success.
on the success of the market.
Yeah. But this all sounds like pretty radical.
It is.
I imagine there must be some downsides or challenges.
Oh, absolutely. No system is perfect.
Right.
And the SAT does raise some questions about fairness, practicality,
Yeah.
and its impact on different sectors of the economy.
So let's dive into those potential problem areas in the next part of our deep dive.
Let's do it.
Welcome back. We're digging deeper into the Simplified Alternative Tax, or SAT, and looking at some of the potential challenges
Right.
that it might face. And one that jumps out at me is how the SAT kind of plays on the global stage.
Yeah.
You know, we live in this interconnected world where countries are competing for investment.
Yeah, for sure.
Wouldn't a system like this
Right.
make a country less attractive
Potentially. Yeah.
to foreign investors?
So one potential sticking point is the SAT's treatment of interest.
Okay.
Remember, businesses rely on loans to finance their operations, and in traditional income tax systems,
Yeah.
they can deduct the interest they pay on those loans.
Yeah, that's right.
But under the SAT, interest is not deductible.
So if a multinational company based in, say, the U.S.
Okay.
invests in a country with the SAT,
Right.
they might not be able to claim a foreign tax credit back home
Yeah,
for those non-deductible interest payments.
that's right.
So wouldn't that make them think twice?
Possibly. But McClure argues that this concern might be overblown,
Oh.
especially for countries transitioning from socialism.
Yeah.
Remember, these countries are starting from scratch.
Right.
And any new tax system, even one with some quirks, is probably an improvement.
It's like trading in a rickety old bicycle
Yeah.
for a brand new scooter.
Exactly. Even if it takes a bit of getting used to, it's still a huge upgrade.
It's still an upgrade, for sure.
Plus, the SAT's zero effective tax rate on capital
Right.
could still be a draw for investors, especially when you consider the potential for high returns
I'm not sure.
in these emerging markets.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like a high risk, high reward scenario
Yeah.
where investors are like, okay, I'm willing to overlook
Yeah.
some of the quirks if I see the potential for big profits.
And it's also important to remember that even back then,
Okay.
many multinational corporations
Yeah.
were already dealing with excess foreign tax credits.
Okay.
So meaning they couldn't fully credit all their foreign taxes
Uh-huh.
against their home country tax liability anyway.
Oh, so it wasn't
It wasn't a huge shift.
that big of a deal.
Exactly.
So the SAT's treatment of interest might not scare away foreign investors
Right.
completely.
Not completely.
But what about its relationship with other taxes, like
Yeah.
the value-added tax or VAT,
I mean, we see VATs all over the world.
all over the place?
How would the SAT
Yeah.
fit in with that?
McClure actually suggests that the SAT could potentially replace
Oh, wow.
not just income taxes, but even the VAT in some cases.
Wow. So we're not just talking about
No.
replacing corporate taxes.
We're talking about a whole new structure.
Yeah, a whole new
Right,
way of structuring a country's tax system.
Exactly.
But I mean,
Yeah.
countries aiming to join the European Union,
Right.
which was the European community back then,
Right.
would probably have to adopt a VAT.
To comply with the regulations.
You can't just join the club
Right.
and not play by the rules.
Exactly.
But for other countries, ditching the VAT and just going all in on the SAT
Yeah.
actually simplify things.
That's the idea.
Okay.
McClure suggests that concentrating your administrative resources
Okay.
on just a single streamlined tax,
Ah.
like the SAT,
Yeah.
could be more efficient than trying to juggle multiple complex taxes.
Yeah, it's like focusing on mastering one instrument
Yeah,
instead of trying to learn 5 at once.
exactly.
You might actually become a virtuoso.
Right.
But switching gears a bit, we've talked about the potential impact
Yeah.
on foreign investment, but what about the impact on people
Yeah,
within these transitioning countries?
absolutely.
Wouldn't there be concerns about fairness and whether the SAT
Uh-huh.
disproportionately benefits the wealthy?
That's another crucial question, and McClure addresses it head on.
Okay.
So one concern is that the SAT, by effectively exempting the return on capital, could exacerbate
Okay.
wealth inequality,
Yeah.
especially in countries where a small elite controls most of the capital.
It's like giving a bigger slice of the pie to those who already have
Yeah,
most pie.
exactly.
That doesn't sound very equitable.
You're right, but McClure argues that wealth distribution
Oh.
in post-socialist economies
Yeah.
is often largely determined
Yeah.
by the privatization process itself,
Okay.
not necessarily by the tax system.
I see.
And remember, the SAT still allows for a progressive tax
Oh.
on labor income, which can help mitigate
Okay.
inequality.
So you could have a graduated tax system where
Right.
higher earners pay
Higher percentage
a higher percentage.
of their labor income.
Yeah, like what we see in a lot of Western countries.
Exactly.
That would help balance things out a bit.
It could, but it's a complex issue with no easy answers.
Right.
The key, as McClure emphasizes, is to carefully consider the specific context
Yeah.
of each country, its existing wealth distribution,
Ah.
and its social goal
And it's social goals.
when designing a tax system.
Okay. But wouldn't another potential concern be like
Okay.
the treatment of business losses under the SAT?
Yes.
Because if businesses can like immediately deduct the cost
Uh-huh.
of their investments,
Right.
wouldn't they also be more likely to report losses?
You're absolutely right. That's another potential challenge.
Especially in those like volatile early years.
Yeah. Especially in the early years.
Yeah.
McClure acknowledges that.
So how do you reconcile that
Right.
with the government's need for revenue?
That's the dilemma.
Right.
McClure suggests a couple of possible solutions.
Okay.
One is to allow businesses to carry their losses forward
Mm-hmm.
with interest.
So it's like a delayed deduction?
It's a delayed deduction
Yeah.
rather than an immediate refund.
Right. But what if a business never really recovers
Right.
and those losses just keep piling up?
That's where things get tricky.
Yeah.
McClure acknowledges that carrying losses forward indefinitely
Yeah.
might not be ideal.
Yeah.
He even floats the idea of direct refunds for losses.
Oh, no, wow.
But he admits that's a controversial option
Yeah, because then you run the risk of
of abuse.
companies just like manipulating
Manipulating the numbers.
their books
Exactly.
to maximize their refund.
So, yeah, it's a tough one.
It sounds like there's no easy fix
There's no easy fix.
for this.
The treatment of losses is one of the most challenging aspects.
Okay. Of designing any tax system.
Right.
And the SAT is no exception.
But even with these challenges, the SAT still offers
Yeah.
a pretty interesting alternative.
A fascinating alternative.
Yeah, to traditional income tax.
Absolutely.
It forces us to kind of rethink
It does.
long-held assumptions
It does.
about how tax systems should work,
Especially
especially in the context of like economic transition,
economic transitions.
which is a thought-provoking model.
It is.
But has any country actually taken the plunge
That's a good question.
and implemented the SAT?
To my knowledge, no country has fully adopted the SAT
Okay.
as McClure envisioned it.
So it's just theoretical.
Well, there are probably many reasons for this.
Yeah.
Ranging from political resistance to just the complexity
Yeah.
of overhauling an existing tax system.
I imagine there's just a lot of inertia
A lot of inertia.
in any system,
Especially
especially
one as entrenched.
as entrenched as taxation.
That taxation, yeah.
But even if the SAT hasn't been like implemented wholesale, right?
Have any of its core principles kind of
Yeah.
influence tax policy in the real world?
Absolutely. The SAT's emphasis on simplicity and neutrality
Yeah.
has resonated with policymakers
Yeah.
around the world.
Uh-huh.
We've seen elements of it pop up
Yeah.
in various tax reform proposals over the years.
So it may not have become like the dominant tax model,
Right.
but it's definitely left its mark
It's left its mark.
on the conversation.
Absolutely.
But what about the transition process?
Okay.
Like, how would a country even begin to shift
Right.
from an existing tax system to something like the SAT?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be incredibly disruptive?
That's a great question. And McClure actually argues that, ironically,
Okay.
transitioning from a socialist system to the SAT might be less disruptive
Right.
than shifting from a well-established income tax system.
That's counterintuitive.
It is.
Why would starting from scratch be easier?
Well, think about it.
That-
Post-socialist economies were already undergoing a massive overhaul
Uh-huh.
of their entire economic framework.
So they were already building.
They were building a new system
a new system.
from the ground up. So
Yeah.
introducing a new tax system.
Yeah.
Even one as different as the SAT.
Might have been seen as just another piece
Just another piece of the puzzle.
of the puzzle.
Exactly.
In contrast, switching
Yeah.
from like a deeply ingrained income tax system to the SAT
Yeah.
would involve
unwinding decades
Unwinding decades.
of established practices, regulations.
It's like trying to untangle a giant knot
Yeah,
that's been sitting there for years,
that's a great analogy.
bound to be messy and frustrating.
Exactly. And McClure points out that delaying the introduction
Okay.
of a new tax system only makes these transition problems worse.
Okay.
The longer you wait, the more vested interests emerge.
Yeah,
And the harder it is to implement
I see.
any kind of radical change.
So in a way, those post-socialist economies,
Yeah,
they kind of had a unique window of opportunity
they did.
to just like implement bold new ideas
While everything was in flux.
while everything was still in flux.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that sometimes moments of great upheaval can also be moments of great opportunity.
Yeah.
A chance to rethink
Yeah.
and forge a new path forward.
But even if the transition is smoother,
Right.
there would still be
There would still be challenges.
significant challenges.
Yeah.
What about accounting practices?
Okay.
Would businesses need to completely revamp their systems
Her point.
to align with the SAT?
That's a valid point, and McClure acknowledges
Yeah.
that the SAT's divergence
Uh-huh.
from generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP,
Yeah.
could pose challenges.
Especially for those countries
Oh, it's a-
transitioning from socialism.
Where GAAP may have been a foreign concept,
Yeah.
but McClure argues that the SAT's simplicity,
Yeah.
with its focus on cash flow and immediate expensing, could actually make accounting easier
Okay.
in some ways.
So kind of streamlining
Streamlining
the bookkeeping.
the bookkeeping process, yeah.
And he also points out that
Sure.
even in countries with established income tax systems,
Right.
the gap between GAAP and tax accounting
Can be quite wide.
can be quite wide.
Often due to deliberate policy decisions.
So the SAT's departure from GAAP might not be as radical
Right.
as it seems.
Not as radical as it seems.
But what about those potential loopholes?
Okay.
Like, couldn't businesses manipulate transactions
Right.
to exploit the difference in treatment
Uh-huh.
between, like, say, leases and interest payments?
That's another valid concern, and McClure suggests some possible solutions,
Okay.
like setting limits on interest rates or taxing certain business activities of tax-exempt organizations.
So there are ways to kind of mitigate
There are ways to mitigate those risks.
those risks.
It's not a free-for-all
Yeah.
for tax avoidance.
And as with any tax system,
Yeah.
ongoing monitoring and adjustments
Or
would be necessary.
to plug any loopholes that emerge.
It's a constant game
It is.
of cat and mouse.
It is a constant
Policymakers
Okay.
trying to stay one step ahead
One step ahead.
of those seeking to exploit the system.
Exact.
But the key, I think, is to strike a balance
The key is balance.
between simplicity, fairness, and administrative feasibility.
A tall order.
That's a tall order.
Yeah.
And there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
There's no one size fits all.
But the SHE, even if not fully implemented anywhere, offers
Yeah.
kind of a valuable
A thought experiment.
thought experiment.
Yeah.
A reminder that sometimes it's worth questioning
It is.
long-held assumptions
Absolutely.
and considering radical alternatives.
Radical alternatives.
Yeah, it reminds us that even in a field
Right.
as complex as tax policy,
Right.
simplicity and clarity can be powerful tools
Absolutely.
for fostering economic growth,
Encouraging entrepreneurship.
encouraging entrepreneurship, and unleashing
Unleashing creativity.
human creativity.
Exactly.
So as we kind of wrap up this part
Yeah.
of our deep dive into the simplified alternative tax,
Right.
let's kind of carry that message with us.
Yeah.
Challenge assumptions, embrace bold ideas, and always strive to create
Absolutely.
systems that empower individuals and businesses
Individuals and businesses
to reach their full potential.
to reach their full potential.
Because in a world that's constantly evolving,
Yeah.
a little bit of creative
Which
disruption
can go a long way.
can go a long way.
For sure.
But for now, I think we've covered a lot of ground
Yeah.
in our deep dive
We've explored its benefits,
into the simplified alternative tax.
its potential pitfalls, and its relevance both in the historical context of
Yeah.
post-socialist transitions and in the broader conversation about tax reform.
And hopefully we've given our listeners plenty to chew on
Plenty to chew on.
as they navigate the complexity
Complexity
of tax systems in their own countries.
of tax systems.
So whether you're a policy wonk, a business owner,
or just a curious citizen.
or just a curious citizen,
right.
hopefully this deep dive has given you
Yeah.
a new
A
perspective
new perspective.
on this fascinating
The fascinating world of taxation.
and sometimes perplexing
and sometimes perplexing world of taxation.
World of taxation.
Absolutely.
Now, before we wrap up,
Okay.
there's one last intriguing aspect of the SAT
Right.
we need to explore.
Let's do it.
Could a system designed for simplicity actually unleash
Okay.
a wave of innovation and entrepreneurship?
Interesting.
We'll dive into that
Right.
and more in the final part
Sounds good.
of our deep dive. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the simplified alternative tax, and we've saved a really thought-provoking question for last.
Okay.
Could a tax system designed for simplicity actually spark
All right.
more innovation
Yeah.
and entrepreneurship?
It seems counterintuitive,
Yeah, it does.
but maybe there's a connection there.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about how the SAT aims to reduce that administrative burden and level the playing field for businesses
Yeah.
of all shapes and sizes.
Of all shapes and sizes.
How could that
Well-
impact innovation?
Imagine you're an entrepreneur.
Okay.
You're brimming with ideas, eager to build something new, but you're also facing a mountain of paperwork
Oh, yeah.
and complex tax regulations.
I can imagine.
It can be a real creativity killer.
Yeah, it's like trying to write a symphony
Yeah.
while someone's constantly tapping on your shoulder,
Right.
asking for tax forms.
Yeah.
You're never going to reach your full creative potential.
Exactly. A simpler, more transparent tax system frees up that mental bandwidth.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs can focus on developing their ideas and building their businesses
Without getting bogged down.
without getting bogged down in those compliance headaches.
Yeah, so it's not just about saving time and money.
It's about fostering a more creative and dynamic environment.
Okay, but how does the SAT encourage that risk-taking, which is essential for innovation?
Well, remember the SAT's immediate expensing feature.
Yeah.
This could be huge for startups and small businesses,
Okay.
especially those facing cash flow challenges in those early stages.
Yeah.
Imagine being able to immediately deduct the full cost
Uh-huh.
of developing a new app
Yeah.
or launching a marketing campaign.
that could make a real difference.
A real difference
Yeah.
in those crucial early years.
It's like giving those businesses
Yeah,
an extra shot of adrenaline,
exactly.
empowering them to push boundaries
Push those boundaries.
and bring their ideas to life.
Bring those ideas to life.
And the neutral nature of the SAT is important too.
It is very important.
No playing favorites.
Right.
Means innovation can blossom in unexpected places.
Exactly, by avoiding those targeted tax breaks.
Yeah.
The SAT lets the market decide
Mhm.
which ideas succeed and which ones fail.
Okay.
It creates a fertile ecosystem
Yeah.
where the best ideas, regardless of industry or sector,
Can take root
can take root and flourish.
and flourish.
Exactly.
But what about attracting global talent?
Okay,
Could the SAT make a country
Yeah.
more attractive
I think so.
to international entrepreneurs and investors?
A simple, predictable tax system could make a country more appealing
Yeah.
to global talent, bringing in fresh perspectives and investment capital.
It's like rolling out the welcome mat for
Exactly.
the world's best and brightest.
We value innovation.
Yeah.
We're open for business.
Yeah.
We've made it easy for you to thrive here.
And this influx of new ideas and perspectives
Right.
could further fuel economic growth and dynamism.
It could, absolutely.
But of course, we have to be realistic.
We do.
No tax system, no matter how well designed,
Right.
can single-handedly guarantee innovation.
Of course not.
There's so many other factors at play.
Yeah, like access to education,
Access to education,
a culture of risk taking,
supportive government policies,
supportive government policies,
beyond taxation.
beyond taxation, for sure.
It's like planting a seed.
It is like planting a seed.
You need fertile soil,
You need the right conditions.
sunlight and water for it to grow.
The tax system is just one piece of that puzzle.
Yeah. But it can create a
Each-
more favorable environment
It create a more favorable
for
environment.
those seeds of innovation to take root.
Exactly.
And maybe that's the SAT's most enduring legacy.
It could be.
While it may never be fully implemented anywhere,
Right.
it challenges us
It does.
to rethink conventional wisdom
Absolutely.
and explore new possibilities.
New possibilities in the realm of taxation.
It reminds us that even in a field
Right.
as complex as tax policy,
Yeah.
simplicity and clarity can be powerful tools
Absolutely.
for fostering economic growth, encouraging entrepreneurship, and unleashing human creativity.
Well said.
So as we wrap up our deep dive
Yeah.
into the simplified alternative tax, let's carry that message with us.
Let's carry that message.
Let's challenge assumptions, embrace bold ideas,
Embrace those bold ideas.
and always strive to create systems that empower
individuals
individuals and businesses to reach their full potential.
to reach their full potential.
Because in a world that's constantly evolving, a little bit of creative disruption can go a long way.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, keep those minds curious and those ideas flowing.
Keep those ideas flowing.